perform and see that any adjustments would need to be made at a future date. But certainly that's where we are in terms of what is currently available to us. And with that, Mr. President, I am obliged to you.
I was just pausing for a moment to see if there's anyone from the opposition, first of all, that wishes to speak. Any other person? Any other senator?
Senator Grant.
Senator Grant? Thank you. I recognize Senator Rudy Grant.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
I raised, of course, support this bill before this honorable chamber. I believe, Mr. President, that this bill is very important. As the acting leader of government business indicated, this bill allows the opportunity for Barbados with respect to persons arriving, utilizing the kiosks. I believe, sir, that the kiosks are presently being used on a trial basis, and the Grantley Adams International Airport has reported that that trial with the kiosks that is being undertaken in a very positive and meaningful way. Of course, sir, the immigration department is there to assess persons when they're entering Barbados, to determine the specific purpose and for the specific period of time. And of course, we have to ensure that all of the security measures are in place, and the acting leader of government business would have made reference to that. Of course, too, Mr. President, Barbados is a tourism-oriented destination, and the reality is that the success of this very important industry really relates in part to the experiences which our visitors would have in our destination. So that when you come to the Grantley Adams International Airport, that is really what, in essence, reflects a moment of truth, what I term as a moment of truth for our visitors. I've said before in this chamber, Mr. President, that we can engage in the most effective marketing. We can go into all of the critical source markets, use all of the promotion in order to entice visitors to come to our destination. But the reality is that the moment of truth exists when they do arrive in Barbados and experience what we have to offer in Barbados as a tourism destination. Sir, the first point of contact for our visitors would be immigration officers at the Grantley Adams International Airport. And therefore, I'm certainly very happy that this piece of legislation is being provided that could allow for the operation of the kiosk. I have to indicate, sir, that recently I attended 2 travel shows. World Travel Market in London, that took place in November, and the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association Marketplace, which took place at the end of January in Jamaica, Montego Bay in Jamaica. Mr. President, our partners are saying to us that Barbados as a tourism destination is still performing well. We are pacing well, sir. Our expectation is certainly from the perspective of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association that we will continue for the winter season to see good performances. When I speak of our trade partners, I'm speaking about tour operators, I'm speaking about travel agents, I'm speaking about the airlines, all indicating that Barbados is performing well. Barbados is still a desired tourism destination. Of course, sir, we must not be complacent, and we have to ensure that we put all the measures and mechanisms in place to facilitate the continued growth and development of this very important industry. Of course, sir, there would have been some concerns expressed in relation to the increase in airport service charge. There would have been some concerns expressed by individuals with respect to the levies, the room levies that have been applied. But I can say to you, Mr. President, that there has been absolutely no negative follow coming in relation to that. The Grantley Adams International Airport, Mr. President, continues through its efforts to ensure that that experience is enhanced. So not only with respect to the operation of the kiosk, which is critical, of course, we do have to ensure that the information that is presently captured on the ED card, that information continues to be provided to us. I am told, sir, that the APIS, the Automated Passenger Information System, would provide a lot of the information that is not already included in the kiosk. And that allows us, sir, to utilize that information to be able to have a good sense as to precisely where our visitors are coming from, to see if there are any trends that are taking place with respect to where our visitors are coming from, and for us to engage in effective target marketing. I know, Mr. President, that there are times when people indicate, you know, we see Jamaica on TV in this particular area, but we don't see Barbados. And the reality is that with very limited resources, one of the things that the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. is doing is to ensure that the monies are spent in such a way that we are able to get the maximum benefit out of those dollars, so that a scientific approach is taken, and the information that comes from the ED cards, and now which will be provided through the kiosk and through APIS, that information is very important in allowing us to properly and effectively engage in marketing of Barbados. I also have to say, sir, that I am aware that in order to enhance the experience as well, that there will be new scanners utilized at the airport to facilitate the scanning of bags in the breakdown baggage area. And of course, you come into Barbados, you go to immigration, you then have to go to collect your bags, and we are trying to ensure, sir, that the process is improved and enhanced so that you will have the further utilization of scanners and equipment for bags in the breakdown baggage area to facilitate a more timely access by passengers to their bags. The acting leader of government business did make reference to the fact that immigration would be removed when you are departing Barbados. And the officials at the Grantley Adams International Airport have informed that effective the 1st of February, that the immigration officers are no longer at the departure area at the Grantley Adams International Airport. Sir, you know, that was a commitment given by the government, and I want to reiterate that the government takes very strongly and is committed to ensuring that when promises are made, that the appropriate performances follow those promises to ensure that we keep our commitment to the people of Barbados. Mr. President, of course, there are some challenges which we confront. The summer period is a period that has always been challenging for us. I can report, sir, that we are collaborating the critical entities, the Ministry of Tourism, the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., the Barbados Tourism Product Authority, the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, Internet Hotels of Barbados, to ensure that we engage in the marketing and promotion specifically for the summer period to drive more business to this destination. Of course, the success of this very important industry cannot be achieved unless there is significant collaboration and performance by the critical entities. Of course, sir, we do have to be concerned when we are talking about visitor arrivals with what is happening in the source markets. In the United States, of course, we continue to monitor the challenges that are taking place there. Of course, if there is any financial or economic challenges in the USA, that can have an impact in terms of our overall visitor arrivals coming out of that very important source market. It is our second largest source market, and we do have to ensure, Mr. President, that we are able to properly facilitate and to deal with any challenges that exist in relation to our visitors coming out of that source market. Of course, sir, we are seeing significant airlift coming out of the USA. We have the 3 flights a day coming out of Miami on American Airlines. We have American Airlines coming out of Charlotte. We have JetBlue coming out of Fort Lauderdale. We have JetBlue coming out of New York as well. We have out of North America, WestJet, out of Toronto, as well as Air Canada coming in from Toronto as well. With respect to the UK, where, sir, about 36% of our overall visitors arrive from, we have a situation there, of course, with the uncertainty of Brexit. And that, again, is a matter that we are closely following because it is very important in relation to our major source market that we are able to respond in a timely manner should there be any challenges that impact on visitors coming out of that destination. But as it stands today, the reports certainly coming from the tour operators out of the UK and the reports coming from the airlines is that we are seeing continued growth in those areas, and everything looks very positive. Mr. President, this bill, therefore, is assisting us in, as I said, enhancing the overall experience, ensuring that there is more effective and proper utilization of the Grantley Adams International Airport. The leader of government business made reference to the fact that the utilization of the automated systems, passenger systems, allow for an enhancing of the area, allows for faster processing. And all of that, sir, contributes in a very positive way to the overall visitor experience. Sir, we continue, therefore, to work to ensure that, yes, we bring more visitors to Barbados, but we also work, sir, to ensure that we are able to enhance the experience, and that experience starting first at the Grantley Adams International Airport. It is critical that we do not, it is critical, sir, that we do not take any chances. It is critical, sir, that we do not compromise this very important industry. Of course, the expectation is that as we seek to engage in the economic recovery and transformation program, that tourism will take the lead, and we will continue through these types of measures, sir, to facilitate continued enhancement in the performance of the industry and to ensure that we continue to provide an enhanced visitor experience. Mr. President, with those few words, I would want to once again give my support to this legislation and to say that I'm extremely happy, of course, as we engage in these measures as well. You are also seeing some improvement in our hotel plan. And I know, sir, the opportunity will come in the not too distant future as we debate the appropriation bill to speak in a more broad way to what is happening in the industry. But as we put these kinds of measures in place as being facilitated here, we are also seeing an expansion in the number of rooms Barbados has to offer and in the quality of rooms Barbados has to offer. The expectation is that we will see the Sands Hotel opening sometime this winter season. We would have recently had Sandals Royal opening as well. Sandals, the beaches by Sandals that will soon be starting. We have, sir, Adiba by Accra that is also expected to start operation during this winter season. We have continued interest in investing in our product offering because, sir, it is critical that while we take these kinds of measures to provide for easier passenger flow, to provide for enhanced visitor experience, at the same time that we have the correct legislative framework, that we are able to have the airlift that is critical to bring the visitors into Barbados. The reality is that the reality is, and Mr. President, sir, you know, as you speak to the issue of the kiosks, you really cannot speak to that, sir, in isolation. You know, if you are going to, sir, speak to the issue, and I push back my chair, sir, because I need to get a little bit more comfortable, because I understand, I believe that Senator Franklin, I know he hasn't spoken, but I believe that he wants me to speak more extensively.
The chair has not challenged your relevance.
Yeah, I know, sir, and I know, sir, that the chair well understands that while you speak, sir, to the arrival of visitors and the utilization of the kiosk, the reality is that that is only one component in the overall tourism mix. The reality is, sir, that if we are going to ensure that this industry continues to expand and continue to grow, that we can't only focus on the kiosk. We have to focus on airlift, making sure that we have the airlift coming out of all the critical source markets. We have to focus on hotel accommodation. We have to focus on attraction. So I say to you, sir, that this debate, while reflecting the kiosk, does allow for a broader contribution with respect to those critical matters in relation to tourism. But I just wanted, sir, to communicate to this chamber that this is but one measure being pursued by the government to ensure that we are able to continue to expand this very important industry. I wanted to give the assurance to this chamber, sir, that even though there are some challenges that lie ahead, and I made reference to the USA and the UK, that we are very cognizant of that, but that we are working diligently to ensure that this industry is not compromised. I wanted to give the assurance, sir, that there is continued interest in Barbados as a tourism destination, as reported by the tour operators, as reported by the travel agents, and as reported by the airlines themselves. I wanted to give the assurance, sir, to the chamber, sir, that we continue to see interest in investment, and that Barbados is poised to continue to do that. I wanted to give the assurance, Mr. President, that we will continue to expand this very important industry, to facilitate more visitors, to at the same time provide for enhanced visitor experiences. And the operation of the kiosk does provide for that enhanced experience, but that there are other measures critical to the success of the tourism industry. So, Mr. President, you know, every day, every day, sir, and I must tell you, sir, that I really was not expecting to speak this early in this debate. I was anticipating that I would speak a little later. So if I seem, sir, to be somewhat ill-prepared, you must understand that I was not expecting to speak at this time. But I must tell you that tourism is my bread and butter, my basket and hoe. So it is not a difficult task for me to stand on my feet and speak to the issues that are critical and important to this very important industry. Mr. President, every single day, there are persons in our source markets who engage with our partners, the tour operators, the travel agents, the airlines, in promoting Barbados as a tourism destination. And we were able at both World Travel Market as well as at Marketplace to share with our partners all of the events and activities that we are promoting this year in Barbados. Of course, this year, the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. has designated Barbados as the year of wellness and soft adventure. That does not mean that we are not focusing on other areas as well. But what it means is that there's a specific focus to wellness and soft adventure, ensuring that persons are able to enjoy some diving, water sports activities, and the like. But there is still, sir, continued emphasis on other areas, other niche market areas as well. And we continue to see the expansion of our attractions as well. I believe St. Nicholas Abbey would have recently introduced a train. I believe that they are producing rum at St. Nicholas Abbey as well to facilitate and enhance the overall experience, sir.
The rum production there has been going on for
yes.
some while.
Oh, I see, sir. Thank you, sir. You know, sir, that we do, sir, in our promotion in our promotion as Barbados as a tourism destination, often speak to the fact that Barbados is the place that invented rum. And that's correct, the production of rum, very global. But of course, sir, very seriously, sir, the chamber has to be aware that every single day there are persons going out there in the marketplace and working diligently to ensure that we continue to enhance this very important industry and to continue to see more visitors coming. So, sir, with those few remarks, I'm very happy, sir, to support this bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Grant. I now recognize Senator Tony Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thanks to Senator Grant for ensuring that I didn't have to make my submission as early as I initially thought. It went on for some time, so.
Give you more time. More time to be fair.
I want to support the amendment before us. But in supporting the amendment before us, I also want to put it into context and raise some concerns as well. The amendment we've heard speaks to a need for us to continually modernize the processes involved in making our #1 industry a better one. The amendment before us, amongst other things we've heard, is supposed to ensure that Barbados is efficient and is a model in all systems of governance. We accept that the amendment before us is aimed at speeding up the movement of passengers, at least an attempt to speed up the movement of passengers. I'm sure that all of us travel, and in traveling we have different experiences. We've seen over time the introduction of automated systems in other places. And whilst in some we recognize that indeed it has assisted in speeding up processes, and others we wonder. There are some places where we have the automated systems, and unless you're able, Mr. President, to join queues for one reason or another that may be shorter, the average passenger still finds himself or herself in some very long lines before immigration officers. But we accept that if implemented efficiently, that these systems can facilitate the movement of passengers and perhaps even slow queuing in lines. We support the fact that especially for a repeat visitor, it can be fairly cumbersome time after time to go and join long lines for a place that is pretty much your second home. Indeed, in our own travel experience as well, travel to places like Europe and so on, you walk through airports as if you're almost getting off a bus and just collecting your luggage and going through. And even the forms that we have to fill out that asks for your ancestry and everything else that they ask for, these are forms that are not required in other places. So we support the need for improving efficiency. Technology, if integrated with national systems and international watch lists, can also address a number of the security concerns that preoccupy not only the players in the industry, but preoccupy us generally. But where my concern comes, and perhaps it may only be a concern for those who speak for labor and the workers themselves, is that we hear a lot about enhancing the tourism experience. We hear a lot about the implications that this one area has for a number of other areas: airlift, hotel accommodation, attraction. And yes, we heard about the plans for training. What we have not heard about as we contemplate how the amendment may facilitate the performance of the industry and improving visitor experience, and albeit that we have recognized that the immigration officer will still be the first point of contact, well, individual point of contact, what we have not heard is what engagement has taken place at that level before the introduction of an amended piece of legislation. We've heard about how the BHTA and the BTMI and the BTPA, soon to be only the BTMI, and intimate hotels and all these other places have been engaging, and how they examine the different aspects of our product that can be improved to give an overall better experience. But Mr. President, although tourism isn't my bread and butter, tourism is our business. That's how I grew up. That's something I grew up hearing. And although we have a number of different mottos and so on nowadays, that's the one that sticks with me. Tourism is our business. And when we interview or repeat visitors time after time, the one thing that we hear from them over and over, even without having to ask a question, the people. And the people are not just the hair braiders. The people are not just those working in hotels. The people are not just those who they would encounter as the ordinary man on the street. But that first point of contact within the context of what we are discussing, I imagine should become very relevant to understand how the people feel, how the people interpret these changes, how the people are going to support these changes to ensure that they deliver the visitor experience that we so desperately desire. And all of us support is very much needed. So this is not a personal one from the representation that I offer, because I don't represent those people that are the first point of contact. But what I'm aware of is that those people have not been engaged. In fact, what I am aware of is that we are debating this bill, the amendments, today, and those people are not expecting to meet to discuss what we are discussing here until next week, Monday or so. So once upon a time, we would engage in such a way you're introducing pieces of legislation or making amendments to pieces of legislation, and one would consider it necessary to ensure that all stakeholders, critical stakeholders, not only those that would engage directly in boosting relief and hotel accommodation and soft attractions and soft adventure and hard adventure and whatever, and I still don't get the hard adventure. I have my own interpretation, but it might be a little corrupt. But what are we looking for when we have much needed consultations after a piece of legislation is passed? I admit there is absolutely nothing I see in it that might necessarily raise an alarm. But the people in the system, if consulted, may perhaps see, or maybe they won't, but at least they will feel the respect that their inputs actually matter to the system. Every time we meet in this chamber to debate, we hear about urgency. We hear about expediency. And I'm not speaking for all of us, but certainly for me, it is not lost when we make those kinds of submissions. I understand those kinds of submissions. But if in our urgency, if in the need for expediency, we constantly overlook the fundamentals that have made visitor experience as good as it has, because we have a stable labor market, employment relationship generally. If we continue to overlook these, and each time we say sorry, or in hindsight perhaps say, yeah, that is so, eventually we won't have principles anymore. So in supporting the amendment, I hasten to remind us that it is not what we do, is how we do it. We are pursuing a number of, or taking a number of steps, I believe, in the right direction. But I heard myself saying it up to a couple days ago in close proximity of where we are, that the compromise to good leadership and the compromise to a lot of good that can be achieved through the things being contemplated is if we insist or persist in doing the right thing, but going about the right thing in the wrong way. I believe that those...
Mr. President, on a point of order. On a point of order, Mr. President. I believe that Senator Moore is misleading the House. I really did not want to interrupt her, but I would not want it to be understood that there was no consultation with the relevant officers. I am reliably informed that there would have been consultation that took place every step of the way, and that in this case, the Immigration Department was consulted with respect to the introduction of the kiosk. So I'm asking, sir, that Senator Moore, that Senator Moore seeks to amend her statement, because it is misleading to say that there was no consultation with the relevant department.
So, Mr. President, in continuing my submission and maybe pausing to address what we just heard, the Immigration Department, at the level of the workers and their representatives, that's where I always go. I don't speak for the directors in immigration, those who are holding office. I speak on behalf of the workers and their representatives that have not been engaged. And if I am misleading this House, as I'm clear I was going in that direction, and if nobody else was clear that the workers and the people who are going to be on the front line have not been engaged, that is what I am saying. And we want to make sure at all times that we don't treat to these matters as if they're afterthoughts, but that consultation, and a consultation not only meaning I tell you, no, we ain't got an opportunity to change. I tell you it is so, this is it. Because I have upheld my obligation to you by consulting after the fact and by not by allowing you the opportunity to direct the implementation. Now, it isn't in the introduction of kiosks. There is a lot of uncertainty out there as regards what implications it has for workers. We in here might be very clear in our minds that it has none. But in the absence of the type of discussion that I was suggesting has not taken place, that is where a lot of misgivings occur. And we have to be careful, especially in a climate, and we're dealing with a government agency again, in a climate where there is extensive uncertainty, especially on account of retrenchment and so on that has taken place in a number of areas. When people look around them, we have to be careful the signals that we're sending. So all I was saying, again, I repeat, is not what we do, but it is how we do it. And I'm just saying that in the case of this amendment, it might not make a significant difference at this stage, but I'm hoping that as we contemplate a number of other meaningful changes that could improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the systems within Barbados, that we don't see ourselves making the same mistake time and time again. With these few words, sir, I am obliged.
Thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me once again and giving me the opportunity to make a contribution to this chamber. First of all, sir, I want to be upfront and say that even before that Shanik Myrie case that became so popular around the Caribbean, there was a misconception in certain areas of the Caribbean that Barbados's immigration officers were not friendly people. And whether we liked it or not, that was the way some people felt about us. And even since that case, this continues. And I do believe that we need to work on that particular misconception. We've seen newspaper articles in which people have described their experience with our immigration officers, and that Shanik Myrie case, I'm saying, did not help this country in that regard at all. We also have Ambassador Commission. He continues to make the point that there is nothing that Barbados has to fear from Caribbean people coming to our country. I'm saying, sir, that we must make the effort, and the point too, that there is nothing for Caribbean visitors to fear when they come to Barbados. Now, having said that, I've got that little off my chest, I want to say so that what mainly concerns us is whether this particular initiative at the airport, that's the 17 kiosks, whether that turns out to be more efficient than what presently obtains. Will it improve passenger satisfaction? I believe so. Will it improve the ease and the speed of doing business? I believe so, sir. My position, therefore, is this. If what we are doing here makes absolutely no sense, what we are doing here is in no way positive, then by all means criticize us for what we are doing. Today, sir, every little thing is connected. I am sure, sir, that the computers in these kiosks at the airport are in some way, I have not been briefed on, I have not heard about it, but I do believe, sir, that they are in some way connected to us overall, a general system somewhere. And I believe that when you put your passport, when you scan it, your number, your photograph, through the Barbadian system, I believe that it can be accessed. In some form, the information on you can be accessed somewhere else in the world. I believe that by using these, you may be able to identify people who are on a no-fly list, wanted persons, persons who are a threat to security because of the linkage with the chaos at Barbados and the chaos in other parts of the world. I have found, sir, that people in Barbados are opposed to change, even if the change is for the better. If you want to make a few enemies in Barbados, sir, try to change something. And worst of all, try to change a system. Try to change the old way of doing things. I know that there's some people who are saying, but people are not going to criticize this. I am telling you, sir, I have already heard criticism about these kiosks. Because, sir, we must realize that occasionally there can be change without progress. But one thing I'm sure is that you don't get progress without change. At some stage, Mr. President, everything must yield its place and go. Everything must yield its place and go. Even these brand new kiosks now will go at some time. At some time, their time will come. If there was no change, sir, my grandfather's car would still be there. He used to use a crank handle to start his car. Very few people in this chamber know what a crank handle is. Too young. If there was no change, sir, fishermen would still be going out to sea in sailboats to catch fish. And I see no reason, sir, why Barbados should remain in the dark ages forever. We have to move forward. Why should we allow the United States and Canada and those places to be using these kiosks to their benefit? Why should Grenada, why should Trinidad and Jamaica be allowed to use these kiosks to their benefit, but Barbados to remain in the Middle Ages and lag behind? As boys, sir, we bathed in St. Philip near East Point in the spring. Every morning before school, I did it, bathe in the spring. And we always used to say that as long as the water keeps running, you never bathe in the same stream twice. That water changed, it ran into the sea. And as long as you bathe there, you know you never bathe in the same stream twice. Because that water changed. I am not any technology buff. I don't know anything about technology. I barely use the cell phone, sir. But I have come to realize that despite what some people may say or may have come very close to saying, technology does not reduce the availability of work. It does not. All it does, sir, is to transfer work from one focal point to another. That is all it does. It pushes work in another direction. It emphasizes the specialization of labor. The Last time I spoke on immigration in this chamber, I remember commending the officers at the Immigration Department for keeping Barbados safe and for ensuring that bad elements coming to this country were kept to a minimum. I will do it again, and I thank them for their work, all the immigration officers. And sir, some of my friends and acquaintances have been immigration officers for 30 years, some more than that, and have worked in that department almost for their entire working life. Given very loyal service to that department. I know, sir, they never got a service medal. They never got a gold crown of merit. But you know, 1 year ago, sir, we had a minister of culture who was given a national award for 2 reasons. For being a minister and for knocking together the world's Tarifesti event ever held anywhere in the Caribbean. Immigration officers never get it. You know, sir, yeah, I heard the applause. Some of it may not be genuine applause. No, sir, we know what goes on in immigration. I told you all about an incident with a fella who came through the Jamaican Immigration Department with his hand in the plaster of Paris and so on. But we know that people try all sorts of tricks to get through at the Immigration Department. And I think it is a very good idea that we should still have some hands-on officers at the airport to deal with the special matters. I can't see a situation where the majority of immigration officers will be no more at the airport. Yes, a few of them may have to revert to the immigration office itself. But this does not mean there'll be any large-scale retrenchment or anything of immigration officers. I don't think we can go wrong by having a few officers there to observe persons as to what has happened generally. Now, I say that because I know within myself that there's a lot more to immigration than stamping of passports at the immigration, at the airport. We may not have immigration officers any longer at the departure area. But I've spoken to people, I said I have a lot of friends there, and they will tell you that they still have a lot of student applications, student visa applications that have to be dealt with. They still have immigrant status applications that have to be dealt with. Extension of stay applications that have to be dealt with. Passport applications. In fact, I was told that, and this is one of the things that that where this passport application is concerned, that this chap, he had 3 passports so far. 3 passports. Now applying for a 4th. And he's told to come back by a certain time for it, it will be ready. He goes back, it's not ready. Why isn't it ready? They say he has to produce a birth certificate, and that is why it's kept it back so long. Now, he had 3 previous passports in which his date of birth is. All of the information is there ready. Every single passport he had, he turned in. And now they're telling him that he has to bring in a birth certificate. I thought that, was a waste of time. The birth certificate. But the point he was making is that they have a lot of work permit applications there as well to deal with. That some of these applications have been there for 3 years. 3 years at the immigration department. And they have not been processed for one reason or the other. The major reason, I'm told, is that they are awaiting extra documentation, sometimes from the applicant. In other words, there are stagnant applications at the immigration department. But you know what that results in? It means that there's a lot of money at immigration department literally laying down. You have to pay to get, there's a lot of work and it's not being done. In other words, the country is being deprived of revenue. And revenue is very, very important to Barbados at this time. So the impression being given that these kiosks will rob immigration officers or whatever of work and so on is what someone that I admire just a little bit would call fake news. Fake news. A little bit. Fake news. A little bit. Mr. President, I don't want to detain the Senate any longer, but this amendment has my full support. I see nothing in it for the Senate or for Barbados to worry about. I'm obliged, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do rise to support this amendment to the immigration bill. And just to give a perspective that I think most persons in this honorable chamber and in Barbados at large would appreciate. I'm certain that most of us would have traveled via the airport on occasions and would have experienced the long delays in processing from the arrival at the front desk and to the boarding of the plane. As it stands, most persons have to make at least five lines. You have to stand in 5 lines in order to board a plane in Barbados. There's a front desk. When you arrive, you make that line. Then you go down to the security check. And there's another line there. I've witnessed, especially in the afternoon, that line in particular extending all the way to the road. You know, that's a fairly long distance. And after you clear that first security checkpoint, you go inside and you make another line where you then have to clear immigration. You filled out what I always felt was unnecessary documents, and what I've come to learn that are being replaced with this particular amendment. But after that, you made another line where you go through for a further security screening and you go through the scanning machine before going into the departure hall proper, where you made your final line before you board the plane. 5 lines. Extremely long period of time. Persons traveling through the Grantley Islands International Airport spent in lines. And for most of us who have traveled, they can tell you standing in lines or making lines, as some people will say, is perhaps gives a traveling person, the most anxiety when one travels. I've had the misfortune of traveling to North America and having to stand in a line and then having to be detained for no reason I could think of. For no good reason. Yeah? No, there was no reason. No. No, there was no, it did nothing actually. Just random checks. But the point I'm trying to make is that there's always a certain level of anxiety when waiting in lines. It's perhaps the worst part of traveling, apart from the 5 or 6, 7, 8 hours that you sit on the plane. The wait in the lines, I think, give persons the most anxiety. And there's always that possibility that for some reason you'll be asked to step aside for additional screening. I have spoken about the modernization of the airport in this honorable chamber before. I spoke of the need for the development of certain amenities at the airport. And I think this particular amendment today is a step in that direction, because it provides a more efficient way, as was said here earlier, for persons processing through the airport. And I think it's with the advent of the technology, the APIS, it provides a safer as well as more efficient way for persons to process through the airport. There's a perception, and I think Senator Greenwich would have alluded to it before, that Barbadians are rather laid back in the way that we do things. Very laid back, cool, don't mind waiting, don't rush, don't push. But the reality is, a lot of Barbadians have bought into the concept of right now, immediate, quick time. We have lost the tolerance of standing in lines. People do not like standing in lines. A lot of industries have recognized this. That's why almost anything that you pay for or you can do online. People didn't like standing in lines to pay their bills. People will go online now and pay their bills online. There's that facility. People don't like standing in lines to pay for the license. We're still waiting for the day when you can go online and pay that. People didn't like standing in lines to pay their insurance. Now you can go online and pay your insurance. People didn't like standing in line to check in. So now you can go online and check in. People recognize all over the world the things that annoy the traveler the most. And I think if you were to ask most persons, they would tell you standing in lines, waiting in lines to be processed is one of the most annoying aspects of traveling. Well, yeah, some things. Yes. No, they don't like standing in line in the banks. That's why there's online banking. The long and short of it, we do not like making lines. Yes, to be honest with you, if I'm going to digress a bit, the one thing that I've seen Barbadians stand in line for a long time, for any complaints, happily and patiently standing in lines, was on May 24th. I was early as 5 o'clock in the morning. They stood in lines. Yes, with a smile. But ever since then. No, they haven't. That was the best tourist spent. But coming back to these kiosks, I think the fact that they speed up the process, I'm not going to go into all the benefits as it relates to the tourism product, because yes, there's that. And I'm not going to belabor that point, but I want to focus on how it benefits the average person, the average Barbadian going through the airport. As I said, many persons complain about standing in line. I can assure you that many a Barbadian have missed their flight whilst going through that process. It's true that sometimes it's their own fault. They got to the airport a little late, as Senator Franklin would have alluded to just now. But in some cases, it's because that line is so long and that process is so slow.
Objecting that he did not speak.
Because the process is too long. And many persons would have missed their flight because of that process. And this piece of amendment, I believe, goes a long way in speeding up and making that process more efficient. And I think there's very little, I'm not surprised that there was little to no objection to this particular amendment, because we all see it as good legislation. The term used in this honorable chamber often as good legislation. A step in the right direction, the modernization of the processes of governance in this country that will benefit the people of this country. Not only benefit the tourist product, but tourists, but benefit the people, especially of this country. I remember the first time I traveled to North America and experienced and used the kiosk. After it was pretty simple, even though as we have facilitators as well who would assist. Persons were assisting other persons who needed, of course, there are persons who would not be so au fait or comfortable with the technology, and they were assisted by officers. And we have a similar facility in place where we have persons that will come and assist you if you need help. But I remember using these machines for the first time and going through the process and then proceeding to the next step. And I was surprised. I was actually looking for an immigration officer to whom I would have to then speak to fill out another form. I was surprised that you could just walk right through the airport, like Senator Moore alluded to. You just walk right through. And the reason for that, because they already had all the information about me. And most persons like myself, most persons that travel, don't travel to commit crimes or any acts of terrorism. They travel because they're visiting their families and their relatives overseas, and they're traveling to work, and they're traveling for vacation. There's no need to spend 2 hours in the airport processing when when records show that you are not a threat, you have no history. And this particular piece of technology allows you to fast track those persons, send them right through, so they could get on to the business at hand, which is enjoying what this country has to offer. Enjoying what this country has to offer, Mr. President. Before I close, though, I want to address a matter that was raised by the senator, the independent senator on the other side there. Senator Moore. Or less. I just had a, the fact she alluded to that the persons who will be affected by this on the other side, the staff, the workers, and she would have made the point that these persons, based on her understanding and information, and Senator Moore, sorry, would have made the point, based on her understanding and information reaching her up to this point, were not being consulted. There was no consultation on this change. But in actual fact, the other trade union that represents these people would have engaged these persons on this matter. And they would have had the opportunity to express their issues, their problems, and these matters are being discussed with a view of some kind of resolution. So fear not, Senator Moore. The matter is being addressed. I assure you that this piece of legislation will bring a certain degree of happiness and joy. And it reminds me of something that was said in here, I think it was last week, where persons, even though anxious or experiencing a certain amount of anxiety because technology was brought into the workplace, and we know that sometimes there's this fear in this country that technology replaces persons, or they displace persons, we should say. But we also know that sometimes that technology is embraced by those very same persons who feared it in its initial stages. They believe, too, that this piece of technology will be embraced by persons working within the airport. Now, I have spoken to one or two persons, and they told me that the numbers, the hundreds of persons coming in, those flights to England, to Europe in the afternoon, hundreds of people that they have to process. They welcome any technology that will speed up that process. It's difficult for them. So they welcome any technology that would speed up that process, any amendment, any legislation that would make life easy, not only for the average Barbadian, not only for the tourists, but for the staff at the Grantley Islands Airport. So I will conclude how I started by saying that I fully support this particular amendment, just as I've supported all the transformational pieces of amendment that would have passed through this honorable chamber. And I want to fully associate myself with the sentiments of the senators on this side who also support the piece of amendment. And with those few words, Mr. President, I'm obliged to you.
Senator Lucille Moore will now wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've listened to all the comments of my colleagues today, and I would just like to say that this amendment will certainly, hopefully, accomplish all of the things that we have discussed here today, and some of the things that I've raised in my introductory remarks earlier. But it certainly will enhance the visitor's experience, and I think Senator Grant was quite passionate in his delivery when explaining some of the issues coming from within the tourism sector. And I did hear his concern about capturing data that you currently get on the ED cards and I can assure him that the passenger name record, the PNR, does capture some of this information. Mr. President, it captures things like the travel itinerary of the individual, the payment details, co-travelers, their permanent address, where they will be staying, and not limited to those, but other things as well, which would certainly then assist the tourism sector in continuing to have consistent analysis that they will need in order to continue to ensure that the tourism product meets the standards that are required by the visitors here. But certainly the overall experience, both by visitors who are coming for pleasure and for business travelers, and of course for Barbadians returning home, that will certainly be a much enhanced experience. Now, of course, I know that some people will be concerned about elderly people who may come through the airport and have to use these machines, and other people who may have difficulty using technology. That happens with everything. And that is why, as I articulated earlier, there will be individuals there to assist people when they come to use these machines. I know there are many of us in here who travel frequently, and so we're used to using these machines. But certainly for those individuals who may experience difficulties, there will be assistance there provided for them to be able to also use the machines seamlessly. Now, with regard to the immigration officers and the process being embarked on here, as you would know, there has, or you may not know, but there actually has been a pilot of the machines going on at the airport as we speak. It's been going on since last year. And so what was done was that we utilized some of the machines and allowed people to go in order to see what the difficulties would be and to be able to get some idea of what we would encounter, and so be able to rectify before the machines were fully operational. And certainly we were given some instructive comments from immigration, because the immigration officers, don't forget, once you get the slip from the machine, you then still have to proceed to an immigration officer who then will ensure that the picture on the slip, that of your passport, are synonymous, and then from there you proceed to the customs area. And so the immigration department themselves, and I must applaud them at this point and say that I believe the immigration officers here in Barbados do, for the main part, an excellent job. They really do try to get things done with some very limited resources at times. I believe that these machines will help them in the conducting of their business and allow them, as I said earlier, to focus on other areas that are of paramount importance to this country in terms of our safety, security, and other aspects of immigration and border control that is done on a daily basis by these extremely committed persons in the immigration department. So I would like to applaud them and for their continuing efforts along these lines. Now, with regard to the legislation itself, you would know that this is needed, and it really is needed for all of the reasons that I expounded on earlier. We believe that Barbados has to continue to be a prime tourism destination. Barbados must also function as a center point for business in the Caribbean, as it has done for many years, and that must continue. And of course, we also know that we have many, many persons that come here for study. We've seen the advent of new institutions to our shores, and there are other institutions that want to come to our shores, and so there's a large number of students that are in and out of our country, which they themselves are almost 365-day tourists, because they're in and out as within their holiday periods and what have you. So there is a demand for immigration services, and so for that reason, for all of these people that are coming to our shores, we feel that we must ensure that we have the capability to manage the process and in a seamless way where people are not inconvenienced. You know, this government has a view on immigration and on people coming to our shores, whether as visitors or as business persons. We have never said, ever so welcome, wait for a call. We believe that people are welcome to Barbados. And Barbados is certainly open to visitors and open to business. And so within that context, we believe that the amendment to this particular bill will facilitate some of the aspects of the ease of visitors' experience, as well as the ability to do business here in Barbados, and of course for our Barbadian citizens themselves to not be inconvenienced, Mr. President. And so with that, I would like to I would like to beg that the bill be read a second time. And as well, Mr. President, I beg to move that Your Honor. Yeah, that's right.
The question is that the bill under consideration now read a second time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. You may now proceed to move that I
Mr. President, I beg to move that Your Honor do now leave the chamber and the Senate resolve itself into committee for further consideration of the bill.
The question is that I do now absent myself. The Senate resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate for the further consideration of this bill in committee. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We are now in committee. Over to you, Gabby.
The Senate is now in committee.
I beg to move that Clause 1 stand part.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part. Honorable Senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2. I beg to move that Clause 2 stand part.
The question is that Clause 2 stand part. Honorable Senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3. I beg to move that Clause 3 stand part.
The question is that Clause 3 stand part. Honorable Senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4. I beg to move that Clause 4 stand part.
The question is that Clause 4 stand part. Honorable Senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
I beg to move that the schedule for the schedule.
Is the schedule? No schedule.
I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee. Honorable Senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
I beg to move that the bill be read a third time.
The question is that the bill under consideration be now read a third time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited as the Immigration Act Cap Amendment Act Cap 2019.
Question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be so cited. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. The bill is now passed and it will be so cited. You want to go to lunch now?
Yes, roll call.
Suspension. Move a suspension for what time? Until 2:30? Yeah.
I beg to move that the sitting now be suspended for lunch until 2:30.
The question is that we do now take the suspension for lunch until 2:30. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We are now on the suspension until 2:30.